Okay, so what just happened there is exciting on so many levels. Like, oh my God, I'm actually genuinely excited. Firstly, there's the fact that he's speaking Quenya, right? Which brings up the question, who actually is Adar? Because I always assumed he was a Navari elf. I know he said he was from Beleriand, but it's like, he's got to be either a Vari, because those are the ones that were mostly taken by Morgoth, or at the very least, like Sylvan of Beleriand. But he's speaking Quenya. He is speaking Quenya. Not only is he speaking Quenya, he is speaking a very specific thing of Quenya, which is the lisping. So he says, Ila Ellen Thila, not Ellen Sila, right? And this is the thing, which if you've read the Shibboleth of Feanor, which is one of my favorite texts, it's basically like Tolkien was doing a nerdy thing with language and then he made it a story and it all plays into the House of Finwë and Feanor's mother and stuff, right? So what happened is, in Noldorin Quenya, the S sound didn't exist. They had a th sound, a thorn. And then slowly, after Indis married Finwë, who Indis was Vanyard, the Vanyarin form of Quenya had an S sound, and that began to be used more by the Noldor because Indis was using it. But Feanor's mother was called Miriel Thirende, and now people were calling her Miriel Serende, which wasn't her name. And Feanor like really objected to this because this was an insult to his mother. So all the Feanorians, all his followers, refused to do the change and carried on saying instead of S. They did not, so every word that a Feanorian said in Elvish had a th sound where there's an S sound for the rest of them. So the fact that he is, and they were called the Lispers by the other thing, the Filgorfinians, and everyone called them the Lispers. But he's doing that. He is speaking the Feanorian way of Quenya. He is saying instead of s. So who is he? Because this suggests that he's sorry, I'm getting you in. So he's like, he's a Feanorian, like not one of the Feanorians, because Galadriel, no, but he's a Noldo, and specifically a Noldo from Valinor, or a Noldo that followed the Feanorians. Like, what the fuck?
I always thought he was one of the original elves. Like, I thought he was like a Quevian elf.
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
Like corrupted from the very beginning. Like one of the ones that they first mention as being taken and corrupted. Like one of the first orcs.
Or at the least he was an Avari from later, and like in the first series he does talk to Arondir about Beleriand, but then if he was part of the orcs he might have come over anyway or whatever. But if he was from Quevianen and been taken them, he would not be speaking Quenya, because Quenya didn't exist until they went to Valinor. Quenya is the language they spoke in Valinor. The Sindar of Beleriand, who were here when the Noldor came over, spoke Sindarin, which is now the most common language because Thingol outlawed the speaking of Quenya, so the Noldor adopted Sindarin, except in Gondolin, where they carried on speaking Quenya because that was a predominantly Noldorin settlement. But he's speaking Quenya. So he is not Sindar, he is not Sylvan, he is not Nandorin, he is not Avarin. He's speaking Quenya. He's a Noldo. He's a Noldo, and he's specifically speaking the Feanorian way of Quenya. What? Also excitingly is the fact that he refers to her as Alatariel, which is the Quenyan form of Galadriel. It means the same thing. It means lady crowned with a radiant garland, but it's Alatariel, so that was really cool as well.